How's it going? Hopefully it's a little lighter today. Take a quick look. I know I'm 2 for 3. Is it today Wednesday? I'm 2 for 3 this week going live. Let me just make sure you guys can see me and you can hear me. I'm going to check Facebook real quick. We're going to talk today about this. Hair. We are live. Hey, Samantha. Hey, Renee. Make sure my volume is off so we don't. Reese. Yeah, I know. You can see mine. There's this funny thing. I'll start this off with a little bit of a joke. I remember one day my brother, Josh, he's my younger brother, and he's special. Right? I think maybe this is with all younger brothers. He's special. He comes up one day. We meet him over at my mom's house. My mom lives up near Solving in California. And he goes, "Hey, what's up, Five Head?" And I'm like, this guy, right? I can't understand what he's saying half the time. I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, and looks up at my forehead. And he goes, it's too big. We can't call it a forehead anymore. We have to call it a five head. And then I was like, how can you be upset? Because it's so freaking funny, right? It's like, you just insulted me and I have to laugh at that insult because it's just too much. So today we're going to talk about five heads, sort of, right? Hopefully not. But alas, those of you men with receding hairlines, you now have another insult that can be hurled at you, and that is, hi, Five Head. All right. Krista, how are you doing? Long time. All right, let me check YouTube here real quick, guys. Somewhere on this app is YouTube. And I just need to check my videos and make sure that YouTubers can see me. It does get out of sync. There it is. It does say 12 days of realism for the YouTubers. I don't know what that's all about. Can't get our crap together. Kristen, Bjorn, Halt. Let's take a look, guys. Maybe stop looking at my ugly mug. Let's take a look at what we're going to talk about today, because I think this is literally one of the most important things to talk about. Because if you can make sculpted hair look better, look like this, look close to like this, or look better than this, it's instant sexy, right? That's all you can say about it. It's like, that's sexy. There's nothing else for us to say. You done good, son. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Shall we? Shall we get to the business of it? There is a strategy for doing this. There's always a strategy. Key for what I always teach is that mastery is not magic, it's process. That's it, right? You see it especially with like magician work and things like that, where something just magically appears. And it has everything to do with process. This step happens, that step happens, and this step happens, and people just don't see the steps, right? And when somebody's really good at something, you don't see all the small little bits and pieces of things that they do. You just don't see it. You just see the end result. But part of the path of mastery is learning those small things that they did that other people can't see. You learn those, you do those, and then it looks like you're a magician too. But you just learned the steps, right? That's all it is. Let's take a look at the steps for doing this, because it's not as hard as it might seem to get in there and create really cool hair. On is saying sculpting hair is exhausting yet rewarding. What about the YouTubers? Mohammed, good enough. What you suggest for me, McCraig Mullins. How are you liking ZBrush 2019? Isn't it the same as 2018? Did I just insult some people? Sorry. I kind of don't know why this was released. I mean, the NPR stuff is as interesting as NPR stuff can be. Maybe 2019 is significant in that way. Outside of that, I didn't see a significance in this. I haven't seen any significant impact in my sculpting for several years, actually. So, but I'll put a caveat out there with me bad mouth and things like this. When Ofer put the clay brush, which to me is the single biggest advancement in digital sculpting, if not effects, that might be a stretch. When he put the clay brush on my desk when I was working at Pixelogic, I was like, what the fuck is this? This is just like, this is a failed flatten brush. Why'd you build this? People want a better flatten brush. You made a failed flatten brush. So I'm not always the best candidate for discussing where ZBrush is best at. I have failed many times at comprehending Ofer's genius, but I didn't see a big improvement. So I know folders. McCraig's saying folders, and I get it. Definitely when you're dealing with production, but the variable with folders is that so much of ZBrush productions kind of moved out of ZBrush for some things. And so the impact's a little bit here and there for me. All right. That done and said, I'll let it just lie there and hopefully not get flamed. Let's get back to the meat and potatoes of today. All right, I'm just checking Facebook, and there we go. All right. So the key to this, and this is what I teach in my sculpting class, right? So remember, if you're at all forgetting about this, learn game arts. If you go to this class, we're going to talk about this. It's built in this class. The whole hair, I'd have like 20 lectures on doing hair and getting yourself into this. Okay, the way that you get to this course, you go to gameartinstitute.com. Up in the upper, in the menu, you go to classes, and you'll go over here into digital sculpting, and you'll say learn more. Look at the one with the face, and you go there, okay? Come right here into the one that's got the face. Learn more. There you go. All right, take you right in here. I'm going to cover all of that stuff, but I wanted to get in and talk a little bit about this today so you guys had a sense of it. And I love how it works right here, but I tell you what, it is an art form and you must learn the strategy for it, okay? So let's backtrack in history a little bit and see if you can start to, oh, that's the wrong model to be backtracking in history. Let's go here. See if you can divine any of the movement and the behavior that we're looking for. Do you see anything kind of happening? It's slow, granted. I get that. But do you see the different stages? Always when you're working and learning from other people, you need to think stages. What stage are they at? How are they building this, right? And how are they dealing with some of the crazy? These are all the things that we have to be thinking about as we go through this. So I'm going to show you the 3 steps, all right? And I'll write these out right now for you. So you can see the first step is for you to establish the clumps. And in this case, it's often random because as you are working, you want to be working quickly. You don't want to be slow. So you're not trying to do too much here. You're just putting some clumps in and seeing if anything naturally happens. You're trying to let accidents occur and you're not trying to control it. After you do clumps, then you start working on offsets and overlaps. Okay, and then when we start working on offsets and overlaps, so for example, clumping you can see kind of occurring here. I think there's some good clumping happening in there. Offsets and overlaps are when you go in and you start to take these and really say, okay, so you're on top, you're on bottom. You're on top, you're on bottom. And you really start to establish these pieces. And then the third one is line work. And line work is the one you see. It's like, oh, wow, that's really sexy. I love that. But this line work does not exist. You cannot do line work if you haven't done clumps and if you haven't done offsets and overlaps. And that's what we're going to talk about today. It's all 3 of these. I'll give you a really quick demonstration on it and then answer any questions that you might have about the face sculpting class or the boot camp over at Game Art Institute, because members of the boot camp get access to this course as well. Or, you know, send you on your way to being a better sculptor, which is my ultimate goal. All right. So let's start here, and I'm going to just duplicate this so that I start over with a kind of fresh piece. And you can see as I've built this, some pieces are working, some aren't. When I come in here and I do the clumping phase, I have a couple of different ways that I approach it. So let's take this and we're going to just smooth that out. Let's get rid of that one. There you go. Let's just see what we do. You know, I should say the first step is that you build a skull cap, right? But I'm going to assume that you understand some basic stuff. And if you need more, then, you know, by all means, come into the class and I'll walk you through everything step by step. But in the interest of really improving your life and making a difference, I'm going to leapfrog to the more significant steps, the stuff that's a little harder for people. All right, so I'm going to use my RK Ball Stylus. If you don't know or have that, you can head over to ZBrushWorkshops.com and just download my brushes. Nothing big, nothing significant, just some stuff in there for you. And we're going to go back up in our subdivision levels and just smooth all this crap out. Okay, there we go. All right, what we're trying to do here is when we're doing our clumping, is we're trying to establish just some basic foundational, music, okay? But there's something that we need to understand in our process of doing this. There's two things, in fact, actually. One of them is the order in which we go backwards, and I'm already can tell I'm going to start giving you guys a lot more than I intended to, so this might drag on a little bit. So if you're having any issues hearing me or any of that stuff, just make a note in the comments, and I'm going to stop every now and then and just make sure that I'm hearing things. Hey, Diego. Hey, Tristan. Mohan, how are you? Okay. All right, so we're going to get in and dive into this a little bit. There's a couple of things to understand about this first phase of clumping. The first one is understanding the order. And usually what we like to do is we like to go from the front to the back to some extent. Okay, and that has a lot to do with the fact that it's easier for me to layer things on top. So if I'm going to go like this, and then I'm going to layer on top like that, and then layer on top, it's easier for me to do that from front to back as opposed to me coming in and saying, and then I actually screw it up, and then I screw it up, right? So the order is relatively important for you when you are sculpting these things. The other thing is just understanding the different types of clumps. And so I go into this in a lot more depth in my in the class, but I can give you a little sense of this. And this is a scan I got online. It was in some museum that they kind of document this. And if you take a second and put your engineer hat on, and you start thinking, what are the patterns that I notice? Do you see any patterns? Do you see anything that would help you make sense of this chaos? Just take a second, Maybe you don't see it right away. And then I'll share with you what I see. What I see is that there are these clusters of 1, 2, 3, and then there are these clusters of 2, 1 and 2. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. And occasionally there's these ones. And then I also see that there are these little S shapes in there as well. So you can see occasionally S shapes creeping in, an S shape, and then a C shape. All right. So right there we see C shapes and we see S shapes. And really, if you analyze it another way, what you actually are seeing almost exclusively is you're seeing an S shape, and then you're just seeing different portions of an S shape. This is an S shape right in here. This is an S shape right in here. But we're not paying attention to this internal side. Let's see another C. Here's an S shape right there. But what we're seeing is a high point, and then this disappears. So instead, we tend to see this just as a C shape. So that's interesting. We see S shapes, we see C shapes, and in terms of the C shapes, we see C shapes that are 1 cluster, 2 cluster, and 3 cluster. That's just important for us to kind of understand, and for us to have some sort of language or some sort of grammar, well, really language or grammar, for you to kind of move forward. And then that's going to help me come in here and start to build the hair the way that I want. So we're going to start from the front, move our way back, and we're going to deal with C shapes and S shapes, and we're going to deal with 1, 2, and 3 clusters. So we're going to come in, and let me set my embed at 9. Yeah, I want to get some room, and you can see how I build, and then I'll build. And when I build like this, I'll come in and I'll build this in multiple kind of groups like this. There we go. There we go. I'm always trying to get it into a dot, 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 dot phase, dot, dot, right? I'm trying to get these clumps with this period, with this kind of forward-facing place. All right, now let's undo this. We got to understand a little bit about the directionality. And in this particular case, the hair is moving down, if I remember my reference. So there we go. Change up your direction every now and then. And really study direction of these things. Okay, I don't have a ton of time here today because I don't want to give you guys an illusion that this is just like magic. You just come in here like, hey, Ryan did this in a half-hour tutorial on Facebook. It's like, oh, it's that easy. Hell no. It ain't that easy. That's why I got a class. If it was that easy, I'd have just told you that and we'd have been done with it. You know, you got to learn a lot to really make this kind of work in your favor. But this is the first stage, all right? And so your job right here is just to go through and create all of these different clumps as best you can. And if we come back into our hair here, we can kind of cycle through and get a little bit more advanced to a place in which I think, you know, there's a fairly reasonable clumping that we're dealing with. All right, and yes. Let's get a little bit of clumping. All right. I think this is almost a good place for us. Notice that when I'm clumping, I'm also pressing the, I'm using the standard brush to push in. So let's clone this out. So we've got this nice little piece to work with. There we go. Okay, and so let's say we've clumped this and we're in pretty good shape. All right, that's stage 1. That's it. Okay, the next stage we got to get in and we got to work offsets and overlaps. When we work offsets and overlaps, we're again with the ball stylus. And what we're really trying to do is we're looking at this and we're saying, hey, here's a clump. I need to establish something. I need to establish offsets. I need to say from a cross-section perspective right now, the shape looks like that. I need to say, hey, you need to go large and you need to go low. And then you need to go large here and you need to go low here. What we're really looking for is the musicality of this. You're trying to get the musicality and say, okay, so form goes up, form goes down. You want to think of it in terms of music. It's sculpture, it's visual, but it's music. You know, there's all music is really just, you know, a proportions between sounds. Let's hit cancel. We actually want to use that one. Make sure I didn't screw it up. Where's my clone? Oh, of course, Ryan. Duh. Sorry, we're not going to clone this. We're going to duplicate it. Get your head straight, son. All right, back into offsets and overlaps. So here I'm going to come in, and I'm going to use this ball stylus tool and really just say, hey, I want this piece to really come up, and then I want you to really dive down. That's it. You're diving. Yeah, let me make sure my pressure's in. Yeah, there we go. Okay, and then voila. You see that? And make sure you get the form to kind of start to overlap and you start to get a sense of the depth of things. This is going to come up larger and then these will come down. Okay. And in the beginning, this gets a little kind of procedural and you start to notice it a little bit, right? And that's okay because what we're trying to do right off the bat is just get some sense of musicality, and then over time you can start to blend it and you'll see that as we get into it. But here I am, I'm coming in and I'm just going to say I want to emphasize and I want to de-emphasize. Okay, and I want to I want to emphasize this curve, and I'll pull it in like that. Why don't we make a little bit of an S curve there? And voila. Wow, look at that. See? Starting to get some music. And then I might pull this one in a little bit. Voila. Okay, pull this in and take that out. Okay, and you yourself are using very specific shapes. You're using S shapes, but you carve an S shape by using C shapes. You know, that's what I'm doing a lot. I'm just moving my brush just like that. All right, let me stop real quick and make sure you guys are hearing me and everything's good. Give me a quick shout out. Van, hey, nice to catch you live. Will you keep the videos? Yeah, videos will be here, Van. Crime Lord, these clusters are what helped me create anime. Yes, Dragon Ball is totally, right? Totally. And you got to learn the particular rhythm and the music for Dragon Ball. Tristan, how would you handle longer hair clumps? It's similar but different. So if we get time, we'll look at that in another session. Right now, focus is going to be our friend. So if we can stay focused on this, that would be great. Reese, 20 minutes plus 20 years of sculpting. Oh, okay, so he's responding to somebody. Midgen, not hard you say that, but I don't believe you. I don't know what you're referring to, but trust me, mastery is not magic, it's process. And when I say it's not hard, what I'm saying is you just got to learn the process and you got to drill yourself on the process, right? It's, for example, another way of saying rocket science isn't hard to rocket scientists. Samantha, time to add hair. Yes. Anderson, no Santa Claus. Pat, will there be a replay of this live? It does it automatically, my friend. Kevin, he sees C shapes on the Z sculpt. He sees C shapes on the sculpt. Okay, great. We just have, Kevin, you're doubling as Dr. Seuss. Cool. We need another Dr. Seuss. Mohammed, my friend, I was looking at your work the other day. I'm so proud of everything you're doing, Mohammed. Guys, welcome Mohammed Asraf. He was in the boot camp with me. I'd like to say I contributed somewhat to this individual, but he is one of the hardest working students I've ever had and built his own success. But congrats on that, Mohammed. Mateo, how are you? All right. Okay, you guys can hear me. That's good to know. I will get on and about my business. We are in the stage now of creating offsets and our overlaps, right? And this is kind of this is just a very fun phase, you know, for me. I love this phase. And there's so much beauty that this is where you really like improv, jazz. Not that I'm even remotely qualified to use that as a metaphor, but hell, writers are unqualified and use metaphors all the time, so why can't sculptors? Was that a dig? I had a dig on ZBrush today and now writers. It's not a good day for me. I'm gonna get flamed. Maybe what we should do is we should open up a society for the unqualified. We are unqualified yet still trudge forward. All right, you see, you get how we're doing this, right? Now, again, I'm gonna skip ahead because I want you to kind of, there's a lot, and I do not want to give you any illusion that this just happens, you know, auto-magically, right? It takes time, and it takes a lot of energy. And you can see here the difference. I have started to establish this more striations. Over here on the other side, I've been much more clear with it. And then at some point, right about here actually, we enter into this next phase. So let me backtrack to this. And let's say, and we'll duplicate this. Dun, dun, dun. Let's say you have established clumps and you've established offsets and overlaps. Arguably, this side has that a little bit better established. Okay, and what is the next stage for us to do? So again, clumps. Stage 1. Stage 2, offsets, overlaps. When you're doing overlaps and offsets, you're trying to say, hey, I'm trying to establish the musicality, and the offsets are within the clumps. 3, line work. Now, we are blessed with line work by the orb brushes, so make sure you download the pack. Pretty sure they're free. Even if they weren't free, they would be worth money. They are awesome and unparalleled. In all my years of developing for ZBrush, developing ZBrush, and working with the community, I've seen nobody pull it together as well as this brush pack's pulled together. I freaking love it. You know, it's just great. So come in with this brush, with these brushes. And now what we do is we add the seasoning on top of all of this that we've done. There is something we could talk about before we do the line work, though, because I like to, you know, I like to shake things up. One of the things you can do before you do the line work, we could argue that there is a stage 2.2b. After you do the offsets and the overlaps, you could come in and you could go into, you could use my rake brush. This is my, you guys may know this, but I actually am the guy who put the rake brush in ZBrush. So did they remove it? No, this rake brush is my rake brush. I spent like 2 days building that thing. And in the end, it was like the simplest thing on the planet. But I don't like this rake brush anymore, so I made another one. And since I don't work at Pixelogic anymore, I can't just replace it. So it's there at ZBrush Workshops. So when we've got these clumps, you can come in and you can just start to see how we start to kind of confuse them. So we're just saying, hey, you know, yeah, I understand that I created these clumps, but now we go in, and if you use this rake brush, my rake brush, right, it goes in and auto-magically you will build these this connective tissue so that it starts to obfuscate the actual individual separations of these. And that, I think, is a very powerful thing for us to do. Because otherwise what happens is you just get like this. You see in the back, bop, bop, bop. Like everything is the same and it's just too integrated. And if you ever look at hair closely, it's like it's a freaking mess, you know? It's a mess. Combing my daughter's hair is oddly one of the most kind of wonderful things. My wife tends to pull the hair a little too much, so my daughter always comes to me, and then I'm just like in zen brushing her hair. And let's hit cancel. And you know, the goal is always to get this nice and smooth and integrated. But even when it's integrated, you still have these, you know, these separate kind of chunks in there. And this is all, you know, if you start out and you try to put if you try to integrate these chunks before you have them separated, you won't do a good job. You have to learn to separate everything. You do your clumps, you do your offsets and your overlaps, and then only then do you come back in and integrate. You know, this is really quite beautiful now, but we had to, you know, if we come back and we compare it to what we did before, you can see, you know, it definitely helps for you to go in if you do a comparison. Like this is before and this is after. This area is much nicer, right? These areas where these guys, it's just a little bit more integrated and it's not so seemingly isolated pieces. This is a better deal, all right? So it's worth a moment to go in there and do a 2B phase. And then once you've got that, you're back into the orb crack brush. I love this brush. And then we come in and we start to do our line work. And with the orb crack, we're going to press Alt. You see that line that starts to develop? And the way orb works best is you kind of go back and forth. Okay, watch out for little areas like this where you get a little lazy and these forms kind of blend, so don't do that. Hair strands don't overlap each other like that. And then occasionally press let go of Alt so that it starts to push in and you get your line work. Again, this is something that takes time. But the key is press Alt because you want to build volume. You want to build these kind of plateaus. Don't just press Alt and carve in. Build that thing. Right? Just like that. Voila. All right, look at that. Come around. And then don't get too, like for example, right here in this area, I could get a little repetitive and be like, well, we're just going to do this. But occasionally you want to break the line. So you want to go like that. Okay? The overall form is right here. But then I want to come through and be like, all right, let's break the line. Let's hop the line. Let's see if we can get something kind of sexy going like that. That's one of the ways in which I got this line and these guys is by hopping the line. All right. So you got to get in there and hop that line. Get in there and really just, you know, see if you can. And what do you know? You might end up encountering or creating a really nice flip right there like that. I kind of like that flip that that's developed right in there. So there we go. Cool. And then let's give it a little bit of hair underneath there, and I'm going to increase the draw size. There you go. And we're just getting a lot of, I mean, this is a lot of this is about the texturing phase. Like that. There you go. And this just starts to magically look beautiful, if I do say so myself. What you really want at this stage, in my opinion, is you want to be surprising the hell out of yourself. And you surprise the hell out of yourself by setting yourself up for success with these stages earlier on. Because you want this to just be like, oh my God, I think this is, I can actually do hair. Oh, I'm so proud of myself. You want that feeling. Because that's the feeling where it's like, that's when you know you focused on process. You didn't focus on product. You focused on making something kind of happen magically by just doing the right things. Kind of like Think and Grow Rich, right? Wouldn't that be nice? Think and Grow Rich. I think all the freaking time. But, and so the equivalent of that is, Ryan, you said it was easy. You said it's not hard. Seems pretty damn hard to think, right? It's pretty damn hard to think and create beautiful work, dude. Agreed. But it gets easier. All right. I finished. I'm done. That's it. It's those 3, maybe 4 steps. That's how you create hair. Mastery is not magic, it's process. Clump. Do your offsets and overlaps. Come over there and do some integrations. I'm doing the totally wrong. I'm doing a Trumpian hand gesture. Now I got to rethink my hand gestures. Now I'm overthinking it. Now I'm screwed. All right. You got to come in there and create these different stages. I'm going to use both hands. I'm going to go Italian on this. All right. Clumps, offsets, overlaps. Do your integrations, and then come over here, and you've got to build the line work that really sells it. The line work sells it. No questions. But the line work sits on top of other work. And if you don't do that work, your line work doesn't look good. Something's wrong with it. It doesn't have the movement. It doesn't have the life. It looks like you just inscribed the lines in something. And that's the problem. There, that was an Obama move. So we have subtle political messaging going on here. The key thing for you in sculpting is to always be figuring out what the process is. What are the steps that somebody does that are so hard to see, that you don't really notice? Because here's the thing, the guys that are awesome out there, they don't really show you this stuff. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because they're not thinking about it anymore. They're past that. They've already been there, done that. They're looking at that heaven of even better sculpting. They're not thinking about all the steps that they had to do, that they've internalized, and now they do and don't even realize it. I've run classes with the best, and this is one of the reasons why I've spent a lot of time on the boot camp today, and it's because the best artists out there aren't the best teachers, because they miss this beginner stuff, the stuff that really sets them up for success. They miss it. All right? So I'm going to open this up, see if you guys got any questions, anything I can do, but you just saw everything about this. So if you want to know more about it, make sure you head over to GameArtInstitute.com and you go over into the course section. I'll show you again for those of you guys. Come over into Game Arts, go into classes, come over here into the Digital Sculpting with Ryan to learn more. That will take you right into this class where you can learn more about all of this stuff. You see my little Jeremy Irons sculpt. I love the sculpt, the rake texturing more than the pores. Right now, I'm kind of built that way. This class is huge, my friend. It's huge. There's a lot of stuff, a lot, and I just shared one of the works for one of my students, David, who is just killed it with Patrick Stewart, like one of my favorite dudes. All right, let's take a look at the face. All right, Herman's killing it. There we go. Oh man, he's getting so close to Arnold. There you go. Look at that. Isn't that a thing of beauty? Just love it. This is what I'm looking forward to you doing. Now, all you got to do is put the mileage in. That's the deal, right? Put the mileage in. So if you want to get my brushes, head over to zbrushworkshops.com. If you want to learn more about this class, go over to gameartinstitute.com. That's where all my training is right now. Let me take a look at this. And Crime Lord, you should start a podcast with digital art. Crime Lord, I am doing an absolutely horrible job of marketing, obviously, because what you are asking for already exists. Okay, go to iTunes, Game Artist Podcast, my friend. I focused on game artists. We got like 30-something, 40 interviews in there. I actually probably have closer to 60 interviews that are all getting kind of processed. You can learn a lot more about what I do there. And totally down for some Joe Rogan experience. Tristan, glad you like the brushes. All right, guys, any questions? Otherwise, you know what to do. Head over to gameartinstitute.com. And hold on, I got to reset Facebook because it just doesn't keep me updated on the live here. And, oops, press too many things. Weird things happen. Okay. Voila. All right, Rod, you're welcome. Christian, Mohammed. Oh, good. Glad. And there we go. All right, folks. Look forward to seeing some of you guys inside the class. Head over and check out my podcast, Game Artist Podcast. I name it super simple. But you go Ryan Kingsline Podcast, you'll find something, I'm sure. Dream High Animation, I feel mentally stuck. How would you get over these stuff? Have you talked about it in another video? I have talked about it in a ton of videos, my friend, but unfortunately at this point, there are so many of the videos that it can be a little tough. All right, head over to Ryan Kingsline. I've got a ton of stuff over here now. Like, just a ton. As many... I think there's like 400 videos that I've done since I've been doing this, and they're just literally all here. So feel free to go through things. One thing confused about two choices, a little look at how I deal with dichotomy, such as working on my job, working with my family, things like that. There's also 12 Days of Realism. But if you come down here and you look for, in fact, there should be something where we dive into the psychology of it. You can also go over to my YouTube. And in my profile, there is something called Creative Juices, if I remember correctly. My channel. Okay, and the videos. Yeah, Creative Fuel. Look for the Creative Fuel list, my friend. There's a bunch of videos here that go through some of what you're experiencing. How to screw up a drawing. These were when I was a little younger, a little thinner. Look at that. Look at that young face. All right, guys. Have an awesome day. I think I am going to head out to Knott's Berry Farm with the kiddos. They're off for spring break. Beto, books, yes. Anatomy for Sculptors. Any of their books. They are literally unparalleled. Beto, any books for artists? War of Art. An unbelievable book. All right, my friends. Have an awesome day. I might pop in tomorrow and do something similar. Leave me a comment. Let me know what's the one thing you learned about this. I really want to know. It makes a difference in my life, right? And make sure that you either subscribe to my YouTube. If you're on the YouTube channel, if you're on the Facebook, just like the page. And in there you can say, hey, I want to hear from him and get notifications when he goes live. All right. The goal here is to make an impact in your life. Did I do that? I feel like Big Hero 6. The goal, again, for me, is to make an impact in your life. There's no reason for me to come on live if I didn't make an impact in your life. So let me know if I made an impact on your life and how I did that. I would love to know what that is and how I've been able to make a difference. And there we go. Have an awesome day. All right. You know what to do if you want the class. I'll leave it right there so you guys can kind of see it. Take care.